Hi, and welcome to the Thriving Farmer podcast, where we hope to inspire, educate, and celebrate sustainable farming and food production. This is your host, Michael. So I wanted to start this first episode by just saying, hey, thanks so much for actually clicking the download button and tuning in. This is a new experiment for us. This is something I've been asked to do a couple times, and finally I've gotten around to actually putting this together. You know, this is a little step out for me. I'm not used to speaking into a microphone with no one in the room. I much prefer standing in front of a crowd of people, and some people might find that a little disconcerting, but I actually enjoy talking to farmers and talking to people and sharing about sustainable farming and what it can do for them. So this is a little bit out there for me, but I hope that you will put up with me and my ums as we kind of work our way through the first season, because it's going to be great. We've got a great first season lined up. We've got incredible guests, and I'm so excited to share their stories and then to share a little bit more about kind of what we do as a company and the kind of the work we do with farmers all around the world. So let's talk a little bit about me, your host, because I think a lot of people kind of have a little bit of an idea of my background, but a little bit of refresher here. So, I was born in St. Louis, and my brother and I loved being outside. We were pretty close in age, and we actually had a tomato plant when I think I was 4 or 5 years old, growing up the side of our condo that we had planted. And it was really spindly. It was really sad. I think it was in the shade most of the time, but we did grow tomatoes on that. And even at that point, I did not like tomatoes, and I still don't today. But that was our first start. And then eventually we moved to Massachusetts, where we were doing a little more gardening. And eventually we ended up in upstate New York in 1999. And so that was the big move that kind of kicked off a lot of the larger scale farm production that we did. And I think it was in 2001 that we saw an article from Joel Salatin in the Smithsonian magazine. And that was a real catalyst. That magazine came from a neighbor who we bought our eggs from. And she said, hey, your boys probably should check this out. I think they would enjoy this. And, up until that point, we'd always been told, farming's cool, but there's no money in it. You can't make any money, and it's just not worth it. And so even though we were very fascinated by it and we're kind of dabbling in a few different aspects of it, we had no aspirations to actually take it full time and actually do anything with it. So that was kind of that first catalyst of, oh, there's actually ways to do this. And there's ways to do this sustainably and ecologically that can actually, instead of trashing the earth, heal the earth. And so that was a great first step for us. And so over those next couple years, we did a couple different things. I actually started a hatchery, and I was hatching ducks and chickens and peacocks and pheasants in old fridges. And I still love old fridges these days for other projects, but that was kind of the first thing we did. In 2004, we really upped our vegetable game and started going to some larger farmers markets. And at that point, we also met some of our mentors, Paul and Sandy Arnold. And they were a really good sounding board for a lot of the decisions we made over the next couple of years as we scaled our farm and as we grew our business. Because by 2009, 2010, we were growing on multiple acres with multiple employees. We had hired actually key people into our team. Around that point, my brother left to go pursue his own aspirations and dreams. And so I started to run the farm myself. And so the farm really grew. And real quick, and I'll go actually into my story in a lot more depth in a future episode, but real quick, the farm grew. In 2012, I decided to intern at Polyface. He's one of the original mentors of mine. And I said, what cooler way than to intern there? And I survived the selection process and was able to make it there. And we still ran the farm in upstate New York while that happened. It wasn't profitable at that point for those 4 months while I was away. It's always tough to leave a business in the hands of managers when you're not able to be there all the time. And so, but we survived. And then in 2013, I met my wife, Savannah, at Polyface. But in 2013, we started dating. And finally, in the end of that year, got married. And so in 2014, we had a kid. And in the beginning of 2015, decided that we were going to move to Ohio to be near her family to raise the kids. And so that put a big pause on our farm. And so what we decided to do at that point was to shut it down, but really lease it out, because I wanted to give myself a couple years in case I, freaked out and wanted to go back to farming. But what we found during those 2 years is the people that we leased it out to did a great job at mismanaging it. And so we ended up just liquidating the assets by the end during 2015, 2016. And at that point, we also realized because of that, that there is an incredible need for farm-based education out there. And so that was kind of the first starts of our In the Field Consultants company, which goes and helps farmers around the world start profitable, sustainable farming systems. And so, obviously we can get into that in another episode, but that's a little bit of my background, a little bit about my history. We've worked with a bunch of cool farms all across the U.S. and around the world, and seen a lot of farms. And so that's one of the really cool things about my background is that I've been on literally hundreds of farms around the U.S. and seen all different sorts of systems. And so it allows me, if someone has a question about a specific thing, I can usually say, well, on this farm they did it this way, but at this farm they did it this way, and kind of try to help them pare down what might be best for their operation. So let's talk a little bit about why we started the podcast. For one, I am very interested in helping heal the earth that we live on. And that may sound cliche, but, one of the reasons originally we got into farming was we loved the regenerative aspect of it, the soil healing. And that was the reason for going to Polyface in 2012 was I realized as vegetable farmers, we were very hard on the soil. And after a couple of years, we would be rotating out for long-term cover crops. But I thought that we could probably do that quicker if we used animals. And so that was one of the reasons to go there and see their systems and try to integrate that back into vegetables. And, now with the food safety rules and regulations we're facing, that may not be as good of a idea, or if it is, it's going to be a much longer rotation than I originally thought. But that was kind of the original idea, is that, we really want to see sustainable agriculture and ecological agriculture regeneratively move forward and become a lot more mainstream. And so the only way for that to happen, we see, is for there to be great education shared and great tools for farmers that are looking to get into this, so they don't have to hack the system every single time, that they have the clear steps laid out. So that's the first reason, is that we believe in sustainable, and that's another cliche word, but we believe that farming can be earth helping instead of earth hurting. Kind of that's what we simplify it down to. So the second thing too is I really want to share the stories of our farming community. And that can be everything from the beginning farmers. And so often when I work with beginning farmers, I hear such cool stories, and they've tried new things, or someone told them they couldn't do something, so they tried it and it worked. So I want to bring those stories and kind of share what the new people in our industry are coming up with and they're doing, and the new cool techniques they're doing, and some of their backgrounds too. We have so many different people now getting into farming. It's really cool to hear their backgrounds and how they can use that, relate that to farming systems. The other thing is sharing more of the experienced and advanced farmers. And we have an incredible amount of experience in the farming community in this world. And I just love sharing that. My original mentors, Paul and Sandy Arnold, when I sometimes run into I'm stuck on something, I'll give Sandy a call and say, Sandy, what are you guys doing on this? Again, Joel's going to be one of our original episodes. I'm super excited to have him here, and other farmers across the U.S. and around the world that we've worked with and rubbed shoulders with as we've kind of looked at different problems in the farming community. So super excited about sharing their stories too, and their wealth of wisdom. And then the third one is sharing people from the industry, people that are doing work in the tool world or in the research world, sharing some of the research projects from the extension world. Some of that stuff's not all quite applicable to you guys, but a lot of it is, and they're doing some really cool, groundbreaking research. So I can't wait to share that. And another episode we've got coming up is with Tom Stearns from High Mowing Seeds, and he's been in the seed world for over a decade. And so sharing his information and kind of what his background is and kind of how seeds play into you farming is super cool, and understanding that give you another view. So that's going to be super cool to hear. And then the third one is, what does success look like? And so frequently, if we're kind of trapped in our own little farming bubble world, and that's why I love Facebook and hate Facebook too, is that it can share so much of what others are facing around the US, but to show what success looks like. So if you have a greenhouse crop of tomatoes, what does a successful crop look like? What kind of poundage should you be getting? What kind of time should you be spending on that? What should your ROI be on a general farm? And every farm's a little different, so we're going to dive into all different farms out there. But that's kind of the questions I want to ask, and the kind of the answers I want to be able to share with you guys is, what does success look like for all these different farms, whether it be for time commitments or for gross per acre or for their marketing efforts. I want to show you what successful farms around the U.S. are working on their farms. And the fourth thing is, I just love interviewing and learning new things. And so being the host gives me the chance of calling up people, which probably normally wouldn't talk to me, but because I'm going to have them on the podcast, they're willing to share some of their knowledge with us. And so that's going to be super cool for me. Already this year, I've had a few people that I've seen either take cool trips or do different things. And I emailed them and say, hey, I just saw that you did this. Would love to talk to you about it, but I'd love to have you on my podcast. And they said, yeah, would love to do that. So super cool that we can do that. And I can't wait to share those stories with you as they come up through the next couple seasons of the podcast. So the other thing too, I want to do here is share different opinions. And I think that's important. I think sometimes in our farming space, we get really, I'm not going to say militant, but we get really set in how we feel sustainable farming should work. And I think that's wrong. I think there's so many different ways it can. And I think that we all have to look at what that means for us. And so that's why I want to bring on these different stories. And probably you're not going to agree with them all, and that's okay. But I want to bring those up to share what people are thinking and hopefully jog something new in your thinking, or just give you another alternative perspective on what's going on in our world. Because we live in an incredibly quickly changing industry right now. There's so much going on. It's changing every single month, every single year. And I want to share that with you guys as it happens in real time, so you guys can get the latest information on the industry that's going on. And then the final thing is, this is actually, as I said earlier, a little bit of a push for me. I'm not super comfortable doing the kind of live audio. I'm an Enneagram 3. And if you haven't researched Enneagrams, I highly suggest you do that. It's kind of a personality type. And that's something we highly recommend when we work with farmers, is actually know who you are as a person and know your personality type, because it really is interesting if you start to do that research it kind of shows you why you do what you do sometimes. And so, yeah, that's me. I'm a perfectionist. And so I hate putting something out that's, less than perfect. And I'll be totally transparent with you. This episode took 4 weeks for me to record. We already have, 6 or 8 interviews done. They're ready to go to the editor. And all it was taking for me to go ahead and get this first episode done and recorded so that we can get these episodes off to the editor. And it's taken me this long because I didn't want to do it. And so this is actually, it kind of to push me out of my shell. So there you go. All right. So episodes. Again, I've kind of teased a few different episodes throughout this episode so far. And again, we have Joel Salatin coming on. We've got people like Tom Stearns. We've got new farmers coming on. We've got extension agents that are going to talk to us about food safety. We've got Dan Kittredge talking to us about soil fertility. Yeah, we've got people that are from the Deep Organics talking about the gutting of the National Organic Rule and what they're doing to kind of help bring that certification and that transparency back to a good level. So I'm super excited about this season. We also have super exciting guests coming in future seasons as well. And how we're doing this, hopefully, is we'll release a season, which is 16 to 18 episodes every couple months. And we should hopefully have 4 seasons per year. That's kind of how we're planning this. Now, don't hold me to it. This is kind of done as we get a little bit of time between other projects. So we'll kind of get it out there as we have time. What can I ask of you guys? But just give us feedback. We want to know who you want to hear from. We want to know what's working for you. If you can give us feedback on, what types of guests, what kinds of things you want me to talk about, the kind of rants you want me to have about the different topics in the industry, we'd love that feedback. That's going to really help us make the podcast more of what you want to listen to. Because again, this podcast it's not me just talking to a void. It's me talking, you listening, giving us that feedback of what you want to hear and what make this special for you in the future. So again, thank you so much for downloading. Thank you so much for listening. I hope that this can become one of your weekly podcasts to listen to, and that it can really help you take your farm to the next level and become a profitable farmer on your land. All right. Thanks so much for listening.